take them about an hour and a half to reach that area, however. In the meantime, the team here in Mission Control is continuing to work with their counterparts in Russia and gather more information. Team here in Mission Control Houston continuing to work with their Moscow counterparts, get information on today's launch, which did go into a contingency mode a few minutes after 3:40 a.m. Central Time liftoff. Team in Moscow reported an issue with a booster that led into a ballistic descent mode for the Soyuz capsule. That means it returned to Earth at a sharper angle than we would normally look to land via. But that is one of the ways that one of the modes that is available for an emergency landing if necessary. We did hear that the helicopters for the search and rescue team are already in the air. They took off at about 3:55 a.m. Central Time, and it will take them about an hour and a half to get to the region where the capsule was expected to land. We're waiting more information from our counterparts in Moscow, but as soon as we have that, we will pass that on here on NASA TV, and you can stay tuned for continuing updates. This is Mission Control Houston, continuing to see a live view here of the International Space Station Flight Control Team with Flight Director Mary Lawrence leading it. Have gotten an update from our counterparts in Moscow. They reporting that the search and rescue teams are in contact with the crew on board Soyuz MS-10, NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexei Ovchinin. They have landed in a ballistic landing following today's launch a little east of Zhezkazgan, and reporting that the crew is in communications with the rescue forces and are in good condition. We'll report more as we hear it, but once again, we are in communication with the crew at this point and are hearing that they are in good condition. The International Space Station crew members on orbit have been notified of today's launch contingency, and that we are in contact with the crew. We'll be continuing to await more information from our Russian counterparts, and we'll pass that along as we receive it this morning. But once again, we are told now that the rescue forces are in communication with Nick Hague and Alexei Ovchinin, and we're hearing that they're in good condition. Just to repeat the update we gave a few moments ago, we wanted to say again that the Soyuz MS-10 crew, NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexei Ovchinin, have been in contact now with the rescue forces that are on their way to the landing site that the Soyuz came down at. That was a little east of Zhezkazgan. They landed after a contingency with today's launch, which took place at 3:40 a.m. Central Time. A few minutes after that launch occurred, we did hear from our Russian counterparts that there was an issue with the booster aboard the Soyuz that led to the contingency, which meant that the Soyuz came back in a ballistic descent mode. They have again now landed about 20 kilometers east of Zhezkazgan, and we are now hearing that they're in communication with the rescue forces on their way to the capsule and that they're in good condition. This is Mission Control Houston. The search and rescue forces who took off at 3:55 a.m. Central Time from Baikonur expected to reach the area where the Soyuz MS-10 descended at about an hour and a half later, so about 30 minutes into that flight. We are hearing already that the forces are in contact with Nick Hague and Alexei Ovchinin on board the Soyuz, and initial reports are that they are in good condition. We will stand by for more, but again, they expected to take about an hour and a half to reach the region where the Soyuz landed east of Zhezkazgan, following a ballistic descent landing that took place after an issue with today's 3:40 a.m. Central Time launch. The ballistic descent does mean that the Soyuz module comes in more steeply than it would on a normal landing trajectory, which means that the crew is subjected to higher G-forces during the descent, but it is a known mode of descent that crew members have gone through before. Again, that took place following today's 3:40 a.m. Central Time launch of the Soyuz MS-10. And the crew on board, Nick Hague and Alexei Ovchinin, have been in contact with the rescue forces, which are on their way to the landing site, expected to reach it probably still about an hour from now. This is Mission Control Houston. You're continuing to see a live view inside the Mission Control, the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where the flight controllers on console, led by Flight Director Mary Lawrence, are continuing to work with their counterparts in Moscow to get more information about the ballistic landing that followed today's 3:40 a.m. Central Time launch. A few minutes after that launch, the team in Moscow did report an issue with the booster that led to the ballistic landing. Ballistic descent mode means that the Soyuz capsule comes in at a sharper angle than it would on a normal landing, but that is one of the modes that we're familiar with. And we have heard now from the crew on board, NASA astronaut Nick Hague and Roscosmos cosmonaut Alexei Ovchinin. They're in communications with the rescue forces, and we're hearing that they are in good condition. The rescue forces are in the midst of making their way to that landing site, which was east of Jezkazgan. They've been in the air since via helicopter since 3:55 a.m. Central Time, and it is about an hour and a half journey from Baikonur, where those search and rescue forces are pre-staged for every launch, to the landing site, where they'll be able to get in touch with or see for themselves the Soyuz capsule and crew. This is Mission Control Houston. You're still seeing the live view from the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where Flight Director Mary Lawrence is on console leading the team today. They are still working with their counterparts in Moscow to get more information on the launch contingency today and the recovery operations that are underway to reach the crew on board Soyuz MS-10, launched today at 3:40 a.m. Central Time, and then experienced an issue with a booster shortly after that launch that led to the crew landing in ballistic mode a little east of Jezkazgan. The recovery forces are in contact with the crew, and first reports are that they are in good condition. We're waiting to hear more, and while they are standing by for more information, the team is also getting ready to prepare for the International Space Station crew members' upcoming day. Crew members on board the International Space Station are Serena Aunon Chancellor Alexander Gerst of the European Space Agency, ESA, and Roscosmos cosmonaut Sergei Prokopyev. They're all on board the International Space Station and had planned to welcome the new crew members, Nick Hague and Alexei Ovchinin, to the space station today, but the team here on the ground will be replanning some of their activities as they go forward. Again, we are in contact with the crew, or rather the search and rescue forces in Kazakhstan are in contact with the Soyuz crew members, Nick Hague and Alexei Ovchinin. They took off from the Baikonur area where the search and rescue forces are always pre-staged at 3:55 a.m. Central Time, a little less than an hour ago, and expected to take about an hour and a half to reach the landing site. But they are again in contact with Nick Hague and Alexei Ovchinin, and first reports were that the crew was in good condition. This is Mission Control Houston. We're still seeing a live view of the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where the flight controllers are on console working with their Moscow counterparts to get more information on today's launch contingency. Launch took place at 3:40 a.m. as scheduled, but experienced an issue with a booster shortly after liftoff that led the Soyuz MS-10 to go into a ballistic descent mode. That's a sharper landing than we would normally see, but it does mean that the crew experiences higher G-force loads as they return to Earth, but is a landing mode that we're familiar with and have seen before. Crew did land in a little east of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan, and the search and recovery teams are on their way to them. They took off in helicopters from the Baikonur area at 3:55 a.m. Central Time, so they've been in the air about an hour now. Expected to take about an hour and a half to reach the crew, but in the meantime, they have been in contact with the crew and have heard that they are in good conditions. We're standing by for more information as it's available, and we'll continue to give you updates as we receive them. In the meantime, we have heard that now that the Roscosmos Space Agency is forming a state commission to investigate the incident already. However, we do not expect a press conference from Mission Control Moscow to take place today. Again, the Roscosmos is forming a state commission to investigate today's launch incident, but they will not be holding a press conference today. Again, we'll stay on the air and give you updates as they come to us, but again, the search and rescue teams are in contact with astronaut Nick Hague and cosmonaut Alexei Ovchinin. They landed in their Soyuz MS-10 east of Zhezkazgan, Kazakhstan, a little after 9 today, and the search and rescue teams are on their way to that landing site to recover the crew and begin getting them back to Baikonur.